Sabbath? Sabbath. Everybody. I'm a little nervous for some reason. It's all right. Yeah, a little nervous. Today we're going to be talking about, our title is First Things First. You know, you get ready, you prepare a sermon, you know, your assignment, whatever you're supposed to do. And then you come out and do it, right? But, you know, I'm not used to preaching outside of my church that much. I don't preach that much at all, actually. And hardly ever outside of my regular atmosphere. So, you know, it's like a comedy club, you know, you kind of look at the crowd and you got to figure it out. So I'm looking. So here we go, right? Let me ask y'all a question. Title's First Things First, right? If I was to ask y'all the question, what is first in your life? It's easy question, right? So what's first in your life?
It should be Jesus.
Yeah, should be, right? And I knew you were going to say that, somebody. And that is the answer that many people give. But you know, when we're confronted with the difficulties in life and pressure, how many times that ain't the answer? That ain't the answer. It's a good answer, but it ain't the answer that we give when we're under pressure. Now, our answer need to be, yeah, it's Jesus. And not just love of Jesus, but obedience to Jesus. Because when you get pressure, obedience is what you need. You can say, I love God, but when the pressure get on, you got to do what he said to do under pressure. Let me think. All right, we're going to be talking about God and first things first. Now, y'all know that I asked you the question, you know, what's first? Now, God ought to be first. A lot of times he's not first, but God doesn't take anything less than first. You know, God don't do seconds. God don't do second, God don't do thirds, he don't do other numbers. He only does first. Other devil and other folks, they take other numbers, but God only does first. He's first or nothing, right? So we're going to see how that works out in some of our choices that we're making. Not only in our personal life, but in our church mandate, or what our church is supposed to be doing. Is God your first in that? Often we're going to find out if he is or if he ain't. Excuse my language. Is he first in everything, is what I'm saying. Not just the good stuff, but in what he asked us to do. Is he first? I'm going to find out. Let's pray, then get rolling. All right. Lord, I ask that you would be with me today. Take the nerves away. Help me with my memory. Help the people's ears to hear what you have them to hear. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right. All right. That's what we're going to do. I need you to, first of all, you have to have a Bible. Now, I know a lot of people, a lot of young people, y'all just got phones. Pull out a phone. You can pull out a phone, but I'm telling you, like I told my church last week, you need to have a book. If you don't think it makes a difference, it does make a difference. A Bible, a book is always better. Let's go to 2 Kings. Go to our text, 2 Kings, first chapter. And we're going to take a look at this story. And I'm going to use this story. Now, this is Health Day. Now, I'm telling you, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you all to drink water today. All right? Just, if you would, just give me a little grace, pay attention. Let's just take a look at the story. 1 Kings 1 through 8. Then Moab rebelled against Israel after the death of Ahab. And Ahaziah, I got trouble with that name, and that's in my story all day. So I'm just going to say King A because I'm going to keep doing that. All right. Fell down through a lattice in his upper chamber that was in Samaria and was sick. And he sent messengers and said unto them, Go inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron, whether I shall recover of this disease. But the angel of the Lord said to Elijah the Tishbite, Arise, go up to meet the messengers of the king of Samaria, saying to them, Is it not because there is not a God in Israel that ye go to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron? Now therefore, thus saith the Lord, Thou shalt not come down from the bed on which thou art gone up, but shalt surely die. And Elijah departed. And when the messengers turned back unto him, he said unto them, Why are ye now turned back? And they said unto him, There came up a man to meet us, and said unto us, Go, turn again unto the king that sent you, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Is it not because there is not a God in Israel, that thou sendest to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron? Therefore thou shalt not come down from that bed on which thou art gone up, but shalt surely die. And he said unto them, What manner of man was he which came up to meet you, and told you these words? And they answered him, He was a hairy man, and girt with a girdle of leather about his loins. And he said, It's Elijah the Tishbite. All right, we're going to focus on a couple of things in this story. One is going to be the king, and the other one's going to be the prophet, all right? Now the king, King A, was the son of Ahab and Jezebel, if you didn't know. Y'all, is y'all familiar with this story? Somebody? Somewhere, right? All right, well, if not, you're going to learn something about it today. He was the king of Ahab and Jezebel, who I'm sure everybody knows, right? Now, Ahab was the king of Israel, even though, and so being the king of Israel, so he knew what the truth was, right? He knew what the truth was, even though he didn't practice it. He knew what it was. And he married a young lady named Jezebel, and Jezebel was a Baal worshiper. Her dad was the king of Zion or someplace like that. But they were basically Baal worshipers. So the two met together and they got married. Now, I don't got to tell y'all what you already should know. That we're not supposed to be unequally yoked. Ain't that what the Bible says? And whenever you go, I know these days people act like it doesn't even matter. You can just marry who you want, do what you want. But I'm telling you, if God gave you counsel not to do it, there always will be problems. Bad problems, a lot of times. And we can see by their union, they had this king. Wasn't so good. Now, we see in the story, so the king was already an apostate leader because he was just like his mom and his dad. He he worshiped Baal and he didn't worship God, right? We see that in the story by his choice he was making. But God, let me ask you a question. He got a lot of bad habits because he's a Baal worshiper. That's what he does. But God chose to confront this man. He didn't confront him on worshiping Baal. He didn't confront him on a lot of his sexual practices that go along with Baal worship. In the Bible, he confronted him on the issue of his health. He could have said Elijah for a number of things. But in this text, when he came up with a question about his health, then God confronted the king. That's important. All right. Now let's look at the situation. The guy was sick, right? In verse 2, he was sick, And he sent messengers to go inquire of Beelzebub, the king of Ekron, whether he should recover from his disease. So God confronted him on the disease issue, or why he didn't ask him about it, right? A question of health. Now, the king's health decision actually turned out to be a worship decision. Y'all probably say, I don't see that. I don't see that. Well, his health decision brought the prophet's attention, right? It got God's attention, it got the prophet's attention. And his health decision brought him to a choice between two gods. His health decision brought him to a choice between Baal and the real God, all on decision he was making about his health. And I say that many of us are doing the same thing today. I know a lot of people are saying, it can't be that deep, it's a health decision. What's that got to do with my religion? At this church, we have what we call a health message. Are you guys familiar with that? See, I'm looking in the church. I know some people here that have been here from before, and I recognize, and there's a whole lot of people I don't recognize. I really don't know who's a Seventh-day Adventist here and who's not, to be frank. Somebody said you got a lot of visitors today. I don't know. I can't tell the difference. But if you're from here, and you know here, then you know we're supposed to have a health message. Ain't that right? Ain't that right? Oh, we having a health day. Funny thing, right? Right. Now, when the king, who also knew the truth, just like you, had a health problem, he went to inquire over there. Now you got a health message, right? Do we do the same thing like that? Do we do the same thing? Scott, hit that first one up there. Hit that first one. Question is, do we do the same thing when we know better? Let me read this from Prophet and Kings. Yet now the king of Israel, turning from the God to ask help of the worst enemy of his people, proclaimed to the heathen that he had more confidence in their idols than in the God of heaven. In the same manner do men and women dishonor him when they turn from the sorcerer's strength and wisdom to ask help or counsel from the powers of darkness. If God's wrath was kindled by the king's act, how does he regard those who have a still greater light choose to follow a similar course? When you go to be frank about it, wow. Now it's gonna make it a little nasty. When you go to the doctor and he says, Mr. Jones, I think we detected some cancer. What we need to do right away is, you know what we do? We do exactly what he said. We do exactly what he said. What I need you to do is, can I give you some chemo, some radiation, some surgery? We're gonna boom, 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 boom. We're gonna give you the same stuff we always been giving people for 65 years. Ain't worked yet. But that's what we do, we go. That's what we do, right? That's it, we got a health message. But we go to that's where we go, right? All right. I think y'all can see which way this is moving, right? Let's go back to the story. Verse 3 says, but the angel of the Lord said to Elijah the Tishbite, arise, go to meet the messengers of the king of Samaria, and say unto them, is it not because there is not a God in Israel that ye go to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron? That was the message that God gave to Elijah, and Elijah gave to the messengers, and the messengers gave it to the king. Now, God made sure that he got that message. Let me ask you a question. Since he's asking the king that, do you think there was a possibility that even though he was an apostate, no good king, Baal worshiper, that God was going to listen to him if he had asked him? Can you help me? What do you think he said it to him for? So he could deny him? He said, why are you asking that guy when you got a God right here, even though I know you know good? But why don't you ask me first? Maybe he was going to help him, but he never asked him to. He just went on and had the chemo. Now, when I was reading that verse over, I noticed something. I read the story 1,000 times. But you know anything about the Bible, you know you can read it 1,001 times and there comes something you didn't see the last time. If you read it, but you got to read it first to get that hint, right? I noticed what the king asked. The king said he told his messengers to go to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron, whether I shall recover of this disease. He didn't go and say, go ask the king Ekron, what can I do to get out of this disease? He just asked him, go ask the guy. What he wanted to know was not how to get out of the disease. He wanted to know the future, right? That question is a question about the future, not just about itself. I want to know what's going to happen to me in the future. The Bible lets us know that the future things belong only to God. The devil don't know the future. Nobody knows the future. The people who play the numbers, all that, people don't know the future. Only God knows the future from beginning to end, from end to beginning, right? Go to Leviticus chapter 20 and verse 6. The soul that turneth after such as have familiar spirits and after wizards to go whoring after them, I will even set my face against that soul and will cut him off from among his people. Cut off means kill, if you didn't know. We're going to get back to that little topic right there, but not yet. It's back to the story. We went down to verse 5. Okay, and when the messengers turned back unto him, he said unto them, why are ye now turned back? And they said unto him, there came up a man to meet us. Y'all know the story because I just read it. Y'all going to read all that over again. Go down to verse 8. And they answered him when he asked who he was. He said he was a hairy man and girt with a girdle of leather about his loins. And he said it was Elijah. The king said to them, it was Elijah the Tishbite. Now the king knew from the description of the prophet who he was. They said, what did he look like? Told him what he looked like. He said, that's Elijah. Now how do you know that? Well, let me see. I need that second one, Scotty. Now he knew that from the description and from the previous events that happened up on Mount Carmel. You remember Elijah on Mount Carmel? Same guy, right? Same guy. Now, before I read the quote, the king also knew what happened on Mount Carmel, and what he also knew was that on that day that Jehovah won, right? It was Baal. If Baal be God, serve him, right? If God is God, serve him. Well, God won that day. The king knew that already. He knew that. So when he's going to the God of Ekron, he already knew that God was God. It's not like he didn't know. He did know God was God. Just not first. You get it? He did not acknowledge God first. Oh, he's a God, all right, but Baal is going to be the first God, and you going to be, in my choices, the second God. It's what we choose first. It's like saying, I'm going to sit down there and have earnest prayer over this chemo I'm getting ready to get. You already chose what's going to go first. But yes, in the second one, I'm going to pray to the second one. I already chose the first one. I know it's kind of sensitive, but you know, it's what it is. Let me read the quote. During the father's reign, the king had witnessed the wondrous works of the Most High. He had seen the terrible evidences that God had given apostate Israel of the way in which he regards those who set aside the binding claims of his law. The king had acted as if these awful realities were but idle tales. Instead of humbling his heart before the Lord, he had followed after Baal, and at last he had ventured upon this, his most daring impiety. Now, just don't read stuff or look at stuff and don't pay no attention. because I think he just did. I'm going to do it again, and I want you to pay attention. I'm not going to read it all. This is the last bit. And at last, he had ventured upon this, the story we got here, right? His most daring act of impiety. And Ellen White saying in the story that his most daring act of impiety wasn't the bell worship, wasn't the jumping around and acting crazy. It was his decision that he made regarding his health. He said that's his most daring. That was his most daring thing he did. Wow. So you see, in our eyes, it don't look that way. But maybe God's not looking at it the same way you're looking at it. Because he just said that was the worst thing you could have did. All right. So, right? Okay, let me move on down to 9 to 12. Verse 9. Then the king sent unto him a captain of 50 with his 50. I already read all this stuff. I'm not going to read all this stuff or whatever because I don't like reading that like it gets on my nerves. But if you're paying attention and looking at your Bible, you see that the king sent people to go get Elijah, right? He sent a captain and he had 50 men. And Elijah was on, I got to paraphrase, Elijah was on a hill and he went up to Elijah and said, the king said, come on down. And he said, man of God. And Elijah said, yeah, well, if I'm that man of God, then won't fire come down and consume him? And you know what? You know the story, right? It happened. So the king went back and said, that happened? So he got another captain and sent him over there. Same thing happened, right? Now, here's my question to y'all. Why did the king want Elijah? What did he want him for? He made his choice, right? What did he want him for? Why didn't he just tell his men, yo, don't worry about that old prophet. I ain't think, my dad didn't like him, my mom don't like him, and I don't like him. Just go on to Ekron, go on your mission, go inquire to God over there and do like I asked you to do. How come he just didn't do that? Wouldn't that have been easy enough? The reason that he didn't do it, because he needed to get a hold of Elijah, because he needed to remove the prophet from the situation. Because if I can remove the prophet, I can remove God's voice out of the situation. He can't get to God. I can get you the prophet, though. If I get rid of God's voice, then I got no more objections. I can go do what I want. Chemo. And I have no more objections with it. But I got to get rid of the thing that's in my way. He can't see God. He can't get to God. But I can get to you. So go get him. And we shut him up. No more guilt. No more nothing. So he sent him to go get him. Now, you see I got these quotes up here. All these quotes are going to be from Ellen White. I'll tell you that right now. And I believe that she's the prophet of the church. If you didn't believe that, you're in the wrong place. I hate to tell you. You are in the wrong place. So, I say you remove the prophet, you remove the objection. Is that maybe why, people in our church these days feel the way that they feel toward the spirit of prophecy or Ellen White? You don't hear it no more. When you was young, you might have heard it a lot, but you don't hear it now. That's right. You don't hear it preached. You don't hear it much. You don't hear the counsel, and especially concerning health, you don't hear a peep. I'm glad Sister got read something this morning. You don't hear nothing no more. Why is that? Why is that? You think it's just happenstance? There ain't no happenstance around here. Why is that? Because if I remove the prophet, I remove the objection. Right? To a whole lot of stuff you be doing. Right? Church, so we get rid of Ellen White, we get rid of a whole lot of stuff. We can get loose. So we get rid of Ellen White. Right? Am I right? All right. I'm just telling the truth. It's hard, but it's fair, right? Now, speaking of the health message, and I can ask people, have you ever heard it? Some people, the younger people, like the health message. Have you ever heard of the health message? And that's a criminal. It's criminal that you ain't even tight on that. I don't know about it. Because you know why? It's not your fault. You don't never hear it. You don't never hear it no more. Can that be by design? Or yeah. Give me number 3, Scott. Evangelism 5:15. Talking about this medical missionary work. Medical missionary work is the right hand of the gospel. Now, I just said some of us never even heard it. If it's the right hand, I think you ought to have heard it by now, right? It is necessary to the advancement of the cause of God. Through it, men and women are led to see the importance of right habits of living. The saving power of the truth will be made known. Every city is to be entered by like Bristol. Every city is to be entered by workers trained to do medical missionary work. As the right hand of the third angel's message, God's methods of treating disease will open doors for the entrance of perfect truth. As the right hand of the what message? No, I didn't say that. Y'all read what it says up there. I have to get it. You read what it says up there? It don't say 3 angels, but you don't read what it says up there. Yeah. You know what? 3 and third ain't the same thing. The third is specific to the third. Not 1, 2, 3 is 3 angels, but the third is the third. Third. I went through this last week with my own church, and I go through that on a daily basis with people that want to listen. Our job at the Seventh-day Adventist Church is the third angel's message. The third. Like I always say, it's the ugly one. That's your job. Everybody wants to say, fear God, talk about the Sabbath, but your job is third. Mark of the beast is your job. Whether you like it or not, it is our job. He made this church for a specific job, and that's it. Because, you know, I don't got the quotes up here. Take my word for it, because I can't bring up everything. But the first angel's message and the second angel's message was done by 1844, and your church hadn't been formed yet to the 1860s. Your job, he made you for that job. Now people say, that job, we don't even talk about that job. Yeah, but it's your job. The third is your job. Marking the beast is your job. Is there great? But we got to talk about the love. Yeah, I know. But your job is, we just, how do we get away from our job? If you get away from your job, if you on the job and you stray away from your job, Zach, you'll be fired, right? You don't do your job, you're fired, right? But maybe God's got other people doing other jobs, but your job is. All right, let me get back where I was supposed to be at. Let me get the next one. Yeah. Manuscript releases page 314. The word of God in his law is binding upon every intelligent mind. The truth for this time, what I say? Third angel's message. The truth for when? You don't live in 1850. You live right now. And the truth for this time is that the dancing one, right? Is to be proclaimed with a loud voice, meaning with increasing power as we approach the great final test. What's the great final test? Somebody.
Sunday law.
Say what, Jamal?
Sunday law.
The Sunday law. The Sunday law test is the great and final test. Y'all with that? You know, when I first came to the church 30-some years ago, whatever it was, I heard often about how we're going to be running. Y'all still hear that? We're going to be running in the last days, during the time of trouble. We're going to be running here, running there. I hear you, but you ain't running anywhere. You got to get past the test, right? This test must come to the churches in connection with what? True medical. What? You mean to tell me that we're supposed to tell people about the 3 angels, with the third angel's message, the mark of the beast, in connection with medical missionary work? We don't want to talk about the mark of the beast, and we don't want to do medical missionary work. Well, how do you expect to get out of here? I'm serious. How do we expect to get out of here? Man, the man at the Baptist church down the corner, you don't know what you know. You know. How do you expect to get out of here? It's going to happen with you or without you. So how do we expect to get out of here? We don't want to do medical missionary work. We don't want to talk about the... Yeah, it ain't good. Now, as far as the king was concerned, on this health question, it happened to be the final test for the king, didn't it? Because the prophet said, yo, bro, that's it for you. You didn't make the right decision. You're going to get up on that bed and you're going to die on that bed. It was the final test for the king, wasn't it? And it looks like our connection with this health message, with that last day message, it's going to be the final test for somebody else, right? Is that a coincidence? They said, I don't see how this thing, Greg's up here talking foolish talk if he thinks that our health message got anything to do with the end of this world. That's why I got the quotes on the screen. I could have read them, but because you can look at them, you don't have to like what I'm saying, but you read it. You see it. Now, am I saying that Elijah represents the prophet with a medical missionary credentials in his pocket? The prophet has the medical missionary credentials in his back pocket. And you need to have them too, actually. All right, a medical missionary, in case you didn't know, I'm going to make it easy because a lot of people claim that I don't know nothing about that. I leave that up to the health people. And on health day, the health people get up and tell us about health. And then to the next year, let it go. In case somebody gets sick and then they call somebody up and say, can you come and help so-and-so? A medical missionary is one who practices health reform and has a working knowledge of the 8 laws of health. Y'all remember them? Anybody? 8 laws of health? No? This ain't good. Y'all heard of the acronym New Start? All right, well then you know the 8 laws of health then. New Start. Nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, rest, and trust in divine power. That is the 8 laws of health. If you have a working knowledge of the 8 laws of health, you got what it takes to be a medical missionary. Not that much. Give me a number 5. Got it, I think. Yeah. Listen to this quote from Councils on Medical Evangelism. We have come to a time when every member of the church should take hold of medical missionary work. Nobody off the hook up in here. Right? Nobody off the hook up in here. So you can't say to put it on Rose because she's running the medical. No, can't do that. The world is a Lazar house filled with victims of both physical and spiritual disease. Everywhere people are perishing for the lack of knowledge of the truths that have been what? Say that again. Committed to us. You mean to tell me that you got knowledge that people would need that would save them health-wise and spiritually wise, and hold it back for what reason would that be? Hold it back for what reason? Got a reason for that? The members of the church are in need of an awakening. That's why I'm here, unfortunately. That they may realize their responsibility to impart these truths. I like to get you off the hook, but I can't. All right, about Elijah in this medical missionary, you're probably saying, well, Elijah didn't have any medical missionary training in his repertoire. Turn back a couple pages to 1 Kings 17. 1 Kings chapter 17. 1 Kings chapter 17 and verse 17. You remember after the, I'm not going to read all that. You remember after the Mount Carmel experience, the prophet fled from Jezebel, right? And he got to running, and God directed him to a widow in Zarephath. You remember that story? Yeah. He went to live with that widow. Remember the bread will not fail? You know the story, right? Well, after he was there for a long while, her son fell sick. That's the story we're talking about. Her son fell sick, right? That's right. He died. She brought him to Elijah and said, son died. Elijah took that boy. The Bible says that he took him upstairs to his loft and laid on him and prayed, and ain't nothing happened. He just kept on praying. He kept on praying, and the breath of life came back in that kid. And he took the kid back downstairs and presented him to his mom, said, here you go. Now you said, Greg, that was a miracle. That's a miracle, man. That ain't no medical missionary work. We just went over that New Start thing, right? Now the guy had a dead body, right? Nutrition wasn't working. Exercise wasn't working. Sunlight, you go down the list. None of it's working on a dead body. But you know what that last one is? Y'all remember? Yeah, how about that? Yeah, he said, blink before that the last one. Work, didn't it? It go together. It's not separate, it goes together. But that's not the killer of this part of the story. Look at verse 24. Then we're going to get back to this other thing. Look at verse 24. And the woman said to Elijah, now by this I know that thou art a man of God, and that the word of the Lord is in thy mouth is truth. Now you say, why are you reading that? Because Elijah got there on a miracle. That's how he showed up. She had nothing to eat. He gave her food for the whole year out of nothing. You don't think she knew he was a prophet? You don't think she knew he was a miracle worker? She lived with him for a whole year. You don't think she knew that? But when he healed that boy, she said, now I know. It's a difference when you do the medical missionary work. God will hook it together if you just go to work. And say, I don't see how in the world me helping people physically is going to do anything for the gospel. That's not your business. Go to work. And he'll put the two together. That's his business. He just asks you to go do your job. Tell those people about water. When you tell them about water, it's different than the man down the street telling them about water. Because you got something behind your water. But he can't do nothing with you if you won't do nothing with it. All right, back to this other story. All right, the messengers, right? The messengers heard what Elijah said. He told them, go back and tell your boss this. Why did those guys listen to Elijah anyhow? Why did they listen to him? And from the story, we can tell that they didn't even know who he was. He wasn't famous to them. They had to explain it to the king, and the king had to tell them who he was. They didn't know, but why did they listen to him? I got a couple of, can't prove it. But for one reason they listened to him is because when he started talking, he told them what their mission was. He knew what they didn't think he knew. How do you know what we doing? How do you know? He told them what their mission was and where they were going. So they stopped and listened to him. Also, that it's also the way that he looked. Because he looked strange. Which brings me to this point. You know, we're talking about medical missionary work today, being caught on yet. Now, when you're telling people about health and medical missionary issues, it would help if you look like the stuff you're talking about. It's hard to talk about medical missionary issues and you weigh 500 pounds, to be frank about it. It's hard to do. That's why a lot of us stay away from it, because we say, I can't say nothing. I say, you know what? Yeah, but we ought to look like what we... It would help, right? It would help. So we got to practice it. And not only did he talk and look like the prophet, but he talked and looked like the prophet, and it's different. There's a lot of people around here that's preaching health. There's a lot of people around here that's preaching the gospel. T.D. Jakes, Crypto, this guy, that guy. They all preaching stuff, right? but they ain't the. You the prophet. They might be the prophet, but you the prophet. And our message is unique. Like I said before, when you talk about health, I hear people say all the time that, well, we can't even do nothing with health now because the world's stealing our health message. Man, don't fool yourself. The world's not stealing your health message. Because their health message, I don't care if they're talking about water, what to eat, what to do, all that stuff, it ain't got no power behind it. You got a promise and a power behind what you say. They can't steal nothing from you. All they can do is make you empathetic because you ain't doing nothing. It's different, I'm telling you, it's different when you say something about health than the man down the street. If you don't believe me, go and do it on your job and see what happens. How did that lead to that? And that lead to that? And that lead to that? When the other guy talks about water, it just stays at water.
Yes.
Let's go back to the story. Verse 10, Elijah answered and said to the captain of the 50. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's where I'm at. With these guys. Yeah, okay. The 10 to 12 is talking about the dropping the fire down, right? And of the first two games, because it was three that came, the first two, right? Now in that text, I noticed, it doesn't say actually in the text, but Elisha, you remember there was Elijah and Elisha, right? Two, right? Would you believe me if I told you that Elisha was there? I don't read that in the Bible. I don't read that anywhere in the Bible. He was there. Because he was in training. He had been in training. He was there. You think he was missing that? He was there. Yeah, in training. Let me get the, wait a minute, number 6 guy. Prophet and Kings 2:24. As Elijah's, and then I'm going to run right to the next one. As Elijah's successor, Elisha, by careful, patient instruction, must endeavor to guide Israel in safe paths. His association with Elijah, the greatest prophet since the days of Moses, prepared him for the work that he was soon to take up alone. Be the next one. During these years of what kind of ministry? United. That means they're together, right? All right. Elijah from time to time was called upon to meet fragrant evils with stern rebuke. When wicked Ahab seized Nabal's vineyard, it was the voice of Elijah that prophesied his doom and the doom of all his house. And when the king, after the death of his father Ahab, turned from the living God to Beelzebub, the god of Ekron, it was Elijah's voice that was heard once more in earnest protest. So it looked like he was there, don't it? How you like that? Let me get the next one. Guy number 8. Chances on health 5:33. I wish to tell you that soon there will be no work done in what kind of lines? Ministerial lines, but medical missionary work. For you church officials, put it any other way. You don't see that? I wish to tell you that soon there will be no work done in ministerial lines, but medical missionary work. The work of a minister is to minister. Our ministers are to work on the gospel plan of ministry. And the gospel plan of ministry includes and must have medical missionary work. The time is going to come when you ain't going to be able to do nothing else. And the time, I'm telling you, is sort of like now. You still got freedom to do this and do that. But if you know anything about COVID, I'll take your freedoms overnight. So don't think it won't happen. You just watch it happen. Don't think it won't happen again. It will. And the last thing you're going to be able to do freely, if you're going to work on gospel, if you're working for Jesus and you're still alive, you're going to have to do medical missionary work. You're reading it, right? And you've saying everybody wants to run in the time of trouble, but you're nobody going to be chasing you. You understand? If you're not working for God, why should I chase you? The devil knows whose team you are on. And he ain't fooling nobody but our own self. If we're not working for God, ain't nobody chasing you. Right? Y'all laughing. I'm dead serious. Why would he? But the last work for those that are working. Now, I might be dead to pass off the scene, but if I'm not, that's my job. Are you young people in here? If this is the side you're on, now I can't tell you what side to get on. But if this is the side you on, God said, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'll do more with that medical missionary work to save souls than you can by doing a whole lot of other stuff. When are we ever going to just listen to God do what he said? As if he doesn't know what he's talking about. All right. Now, the king sent the people after Elijah. Now, you remember, if you look at that story, Jezebel, y'all remember Jezebel? She had not died yet. When the king was coming down saying, go get Elijah, she's sitting right there with him saying, yeah, go get him. She hadn't went nowhere. She was still alive. So you got to say, how did the king feel about Elijah? You think he had any kind of, he ain't like him. His mom ain't like him. She hadn't went nowhere. She didn't forget nothing. She tried to kill him just a couple years before that and was not successful. But she didn't change how she felt about it. Even next one, Scott. Let me talk about these two captains that ran up on Elijah. Twice the king sent a company of soldiers to do what? Intimidate the prophets. And judgment fell on both those guys. So he sent the people to intimidate the prophet. Let me go to 13:14. And he sent again a captain of the third 50 with his 50, and the third captain of the 50 went up and came and fell on his knees before Elijah, a smart move, and besought him and said unto him, O man of God, I pray thee, let my life and the life of these 50 thy servants be precious in thy sight. Behold, there came down fire from heaven and burned up the two captains of the former 50s with their 50s. Therefore let my life now be precious in thy sight. That third captain humbled himself before God and the prophet, and his 50 partners learned that day what the king did not learn. God's prophet, God's way. I'm telling y'all the same stuff, directly or indirectly. I don't know how you want to take it. God's prophet, God's way. Now, let me ask you a question. Ask another question. That fire coming down from heaven, on command, by the way, it's different. It wasn't just coming down. It wasn't just lightning bolts out of nowhere on a stormy day. On command. Is that a miracle or not?
Yes.
Is that a miracle? Yeah, it is, ain't it? You see that happening? On command? It's a miracle, right? Was the king so rebellious that he couldn't discern it was a miracle? It happened. His men came back and said, yo, man, everybody got burned up. He said, send out another 50. And the same thing happened to them. He said, send out another 50. He couldn't discern. He couldn't tell that God is doing something supernatural. This is a miracle, bro. Let me ask you another question. If he could discern that it was a miracle, just like you could discern it was a miracle, why didn't he just break down and say, wait a minute, I got this disease. This whole thing is over this disease. And he's over there working miracles, even though he's not on my side. Yo, Elijah, you think you can? Yeah. When you done that? I'm trying to get out of this disease. Yo, you over there dropping miracles like it ain't nothing. Could you just come over here? He didn't do that. You know why? Because he was rebellious. He could have had a miracle. It was in his hands. He was rebellious. Oh boy. Now, here we go. Are we just like that king? Rebellious. Running to the God of Ekron, first chance you get. Don't even consider God's methods of healing. Don't even consider it. I ain't doing none of that stuff. I ain't doing that health thing, messing on earth. The doctor told me. Y'all laugh, but you know I'm telling the truth. Are we rebellious like that? Girl, you can't talk about them doctors like that. I hear you. You ask yourself the question, are we rebellious like that? We don't even consider God's methods. We just go. Rebellious because you know better, that's why. It's only rebellion when you know better. If you don't know better, you're just ignorant. But when you know better, it's rebellion. Don't even consider God's methods. All right. the king was an apostate king, right? Which we already know. The guy's bad news and everybody knows it, right? But not only do bad people, which we consider a bad person, do stuff like that, but some of you good people do the exact same thing the bad people do. Ain't no different. No different. A lot of times. Go to 2 Chronicles 16. And 2 Chronicles 16 and chapter 7. Oops. I'm just going to paraphrase it out. I can find it. All right. And at the time, Hananiah the seer came to Asa, king of Judah. Asa was a good king in the Bible of Israel. He was one of the considered good kings, right? And said to him, because thou hast relied on the king of Syria and not relied on the Lord thy God, therefore is the host of the king of Syria escaped out of thy hand. Were not the Ethiopians and the Nubians a huge host with very many chariots and horsemen? Yet because thou didst rely on the Lord, he delivered them into thy hand. For the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth to show himself strong in behalf of them whose heart is perfect toward him. Herein thou hast done foolishly, therefore from henceforth thou shalt have wars. Now the king got mad at the prophet and threw the prophet in jail. All the prophet did was told him the truth. He threw him in jail. And then he started pressing the people after that. Go down to verse 12. And Asa in his 39th year of his reign was diseased in his feet. This was a good king, right? But you see what he did to the prophet, right? Until his disease was exceeding great. Yet in his disease he sought not to the Lord, but to what? Physicians. Even the good king said, I'm not even going to ask God nothing. But he had that attitude because he turned his back on the prophet, threw the prophet in jail. When she got rid of the prophet, he removed the objection. Remember that? He removed the objection. Next you know, he's off to the doctor. Scott, let me get the next one. My question is, have our leaders Scott, go back. Let me get that, see where we again. Go back one. Yeah. I'm going to read that line first. Twice the king sent a company of soldiers to intimidate the prophet. Intimidate the prophet. Now my question is, have our leaders done the same thing? Trying to do the same thing and intimidating or getting rid of or abandonment of the medical missionary work in favor of the pharmaceutical run hospital system. I know we might got nurses and doctors up in here that don't take it too personal. But have our leaders done that? Have they done that? By getting rid of the prophet, and you don't think no more about it no more. And we come to believe that Advent Health. We come to believe that Advent Health is the health message. Why not? You see it in your visitor every month, don't you? All the hospital stuff in the back of the visitor every month, right? So you say, yeah, we're moving leaps and bounds in health. And we come to believe that the Advent Health system and all that stuff is the health message. It is not. All right. Now, we're going to take a look at the original health message system. What you may call hospital, but they didn't call them hospital, call them sanitariums. Give me that next one, Scott, and see how this thing started, if we can see where we ended up. Yeah. Council's on Health, 233. Let us remember that one most important agency is our medical missionary work. Never are we to lose sight of the great object for which our sanitariums are established, the advancement of God's, what kind of work? Nosing work. So the sanitariums were set up to do what? To do the clothes or sanitariums. You know what? in that year, 19 whatever it was, you know they did have hospitals back then, right? Hospital's not a new word, is it? So she wasn't talking about hospital, she said a sanitarium. And they're set up for the closing work, right? We closing out now, ain't we supposed to be closing out right now? Go to the next one, please. The next paragraph in the same thing, 233-4. Loma Linda. Y'all familiar with Loma Linda Hospital? It's the biggest Adventist joint in the world, right? Hospital, right? Everybody's proud of it. They make sure that we wear it on our chest, right? Loma Linda, this is how it originated. Loma Linda is to be not only a sanitarium, but an educational center. With the possession of this place comes the weighty responsibility of making the work of the institution education and character. A school is to be established here for the what? Training. For the what? Training. The training of medical. That's Loma Linda, supposed to be. You can't do a water treatment at Loma Linda no more. It's against the code. Can't do it. It's just a hospital. It's different. They're supposed to be doing that. Give me next one, Scotty. Medical missionary, page 75. The Lord calls for the best talents to be united at this center, Loma Linda, for the carrying on of the work as he, who's he? Yeah, has directed. Not the talent that will demand the largest salary, but the talent that will place itself on the side of who? To work in what? In his lines. You mean his other lines? Yeah. We must have medical instructors who will teach the science of. Here we go. Now we're going to start fighting up in here. We must have medical instructors who would teach the science of what? What? You don't see that? I'm not making this stuff up. Y'all wait. We are to prepare accompanying workers who will follow whose methods? Christ. So Christ's message is the kind of message that have what? Healing without what? I'm not making it up. I'm not telling you to throw all your medical stuff out of your medical cabinet either. But you see what it say, right? You see what it say, right? So we are supposed to be, so I guess the hospitals are run by the pharmaceutical companies. That ain't our job. That's not our gig over there. Because it goes against Christ's methods, which is 8 laws of health, right? I'm not saying don't throw away your blood pressure. Don't give me the, you ain't gonna put that on me. But you better pay attention to what the prophet said, unless you want to get rid of the prophet and get rid of rejection and do what you want to do. Which is how it's been going. Right? That's what's not on the slides, I gotta read it. Now this was from Medical Missionary, page 160. Didn't make my slide. She was talking about a guy that was supposed to run the joint, right, back then. He is in danger of becoming confused and of failing to see the elevated holy influence which the Sabbath question, she's talking about the sanitarium, is to exert on the work for this time. He will consider it necessary to do on the Sabbath many things which should not be done on that day. If he seeks to embrace so many responsibilities, he will come to pay very little regard to the Sabbath. Such an influence will be a curse to the institution. Those who are connected with our sanitariums are to be taught to regard the Sabbath question as the great test for this time. God desires his people to bind medical missionary work up with the work of the third angel's message. This is the work that will restore moral image of God and man. All right. Probably not what you thought, huh? We have lost our way, y'all. All right, remember I said, we talked about there was familiar spirits a while back. At the beginning, from Leviticus 20, verse 6. Say, what in the world does that got to do with the sermon today? Let's go to Revelation 18. I'm almost done. Revelation 18. Revelation 18 is dealing with the fall of Babylon, right? The repeat of the second angel's message. We got the first, the second, and the third. This deals with the repeat of the second angel's message, right? which is combining with the third angel's message, which makes the loud cry, right? Third angel's message combined with the second, that's the loud cry. Mark of the beast, get out of Babylon. The thing is almost over. You know we are here right now. I don't know why you think we somewhere else. Where else you think we at? Where else do we think we at? We act like we ain't at the end of the world. You don't think so, huh? All right. Let's look at that. Revelation 18. So we talk about that in Revelation. Revelation 18 goes on to talk about the fall of Babylon and all the things that are connected with it in the world, as far as money, finances, and everything else is connected to Babylon. And that Babylon, to be frank, is that papal system. It's that whole thing together. That is Babylon, and it's falling. All the money and everything is tied to it. Well, I'm gonna give you that, then I'm gonna stop. Verse 23. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. That's it. We're going to get back to that familiar spirits. It said by thy sorceries, right? Now I'm going to look up that word. I know some of y'all are ahead of me, but so just bear with me for a second. 18:23. Look up that word sorceries. On the Strong's Concordance is 53:31. The first thing that comes up on the description is medication. For the word, medication. That is by extension magic or sorcery or witchcraft. The Fair Concordance says the use or the administering of drugs, poisoning. Now the Bible says that by Babylon, by its sorceries, all the world is going to be deceived. You say, I don't see how that goes together. You guys ever heard the term big pharma? You hear that all the time now, right? Big pharma, big pharma. They run the hospitals. They run them. The hospital is not run by the hospital. They run by the pharmaceutical companies. In case you did not know that. Hospitals are not, they make their money. You notice every time you walk their way, they gotta write you something. You go to the doctor, he can't help it. He's like, yeah, well, how you feel? I feel good, doc. Well, anything wrong? No, well, sometimes I gotta, hey, wait a minute, I got something. You gotta write something before you get up out of there. Why? My brother's a registered nurse. I said, man, we laugh about it. He said, yo, bro, that's the game. That's the game. They're gonna write something, they gotta write something. I'm not beating down doctors and nurses, don't get me wrong. And my family was nurses, I already know. But the game is that. Now, I'm done with the story, Bonnie. I think I got to the point. I had to look up a couple articles because verse 23, let me read it again. And the light of the candle shall shine no more in thee at all, and the voice of the bridegroom. Who's the bridegroom? Y'all know the bridegroom? You said that. That's right. And of the bride. Who's that? Church. So in this system, in that Babylonian system, in that papal system, in that mark of the beast system, since we know who we're talking about here, we just got to be frank about it. You won't hear the voice of Jesus no more, and the voice of God's true church or his true children, you won't hear them no more either. The thing is over. No more heard of thee at all in thee. For the merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. So let's look at that. The great men of the earth. The only way to be great in this earth is you got to have the most money. That's the only way you're great in this earth. Bill Gates is the great men of this earth, in case you didn't make it plain for you. The great men of the earth are the Bill Gates of the earth. They are tied with that system. And they're making money by that system. If you don't believe nothing else you see in this COVID thing, go down. Bill Gates, their first 6 months Bill Gates was on the TV every other day, and then he disappeared, didn't he? And made all that money. He never made more money in that 1 year in 2020 than he made. He doubled and tripled his money. He was already a zillionaire. The great men tied up with that system, with that dope. To be frank, right? The sorceries means the dope. All right? So I looked up an article too. I already knew that stuff, but I needed to get the proof from the man, as they say, because y'all not going to believe me. Don't know what I'm talking. So I went on the internet, because I already know if you look, it's there. I said, I already know who's running this hospital system. Because it's big money, because it's run by big farmers, so it's run by the people with the most money. You ain't got to look, you ain't got to be a rocket scientist to figure out that the guy with the most money runs the game. You ever played Monopoly? When you win a Monopoly, you wipe out everybody and you own the bank. Don't they how the game go? You don't just wipe out the table, you own the bank. That's how the game is won, right? When you get done, you own every property in the bank. I won. And they throw their stuff down, their little hat and shoe, and they walk around. The game is over, right? But you own the bank at the end, everything, right? Life ain't no different out here. That game of Monopoly is the real deal. So I put in, who got the charge to tell, who's got the largest or the top 10 largest healthcare systems in the United States. I just put that in one morning. It's on this site called Definitive Healthcare. And they got a couple ways. They go by size, they go by beds, they go by income. They got a couple different ways to put these guys in categories. Now it says here that in the top 10, more than half of the top 10 largest healthcare systems in the U.S., based on the number of patient discharges, are Catholic-owned affiliated. 5 out of the top 10 are with Babylon. You know the one with the sorceries? You don't think there's no connection, huh? Okay. Okay. It also said that when it came down to the money, the top 10 health systems by what they call net patient revenue. I'm trying to get the right quote. Oh, most of the 10 largest healthcare systems by revenue are Catholic health systems. As this ain't got nothing to do with religion. This is just on a health site. As health systems, NPR figures are aggregated, whatever. From the member hospital data, these values can shift, but rankings can change as medical. Okay, but the 10 highest in money, within that 10, most of them are Catholics. They're running this. I'm trying to tell you that they're running a hospital system. They're running the money. They're running the pharmaceuticals, and they got all the money. You say, how you know they got all the money? I looked up this article on the Catholic Church in case you didn't believe me. It's this site called, what's this dude called? Zubaydah Jafar, some guy's website, talking about the money the Catholic Church has. He said the Catholic, it's so many statements it can't read more. The Catholic Church, once all her assets have been put together, is the most formidable stockbroker in the world. The Vatican, independently of each successive pope, has been increasingly oriented towards the U.S. The Wall Street Journal said that the Vatican's financial deals in the U.S. alone were so big that very often it sold or bought gold in lots of $1 million or more at a time. The Vatican's treasure of gold has been estimated by the United Nations World Magazine to amount to several $billions. A large bulk of this is stored in gold ingots with the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank, while banks in England, or also with banks in England and Switzerland, hold the rest. But this is just a small portion of the wealth of the Vatican, which in the U.S. alone is greater than that of 5 wealthiest giant corporations of the country. When to that it is added all the real estate, the property, the stocks, the shares abroad, then the staggering accumulation of the wealth of the Catholic Church becomes so formidable as to defy any rational assessment. In other words, they got more money than we can count. So, it's enough of that stuff. So the question would be, in first things first, and what we choose first. We can clearly, I just try to define the lines. What side is this, and what side happens to be that? I'm not telling people to quit their medical job or hospitals are terrible. I ain't gonna tell you that. You figure out all that for yourself. But I'm telling you what side is running the other side. They running that side. And that's the same people that you're talking about in that third angel's message. It's the exact same character. So the question is, what side are we going to be on? We got to decide. Are we going to do God's work the way God's prophet said in God's way and get out of here alive? Or are we going to end up hanging with the wrong side by default? Because if you do nothing, you kind of get the wrong side. There ain't no middle. You don't do God's way, he only got one first. That's all he got. He got no seconds and thirds of it. That's all he got. So we have to decide what we want to do now. Most people say about medical missionary work, yeah, we interested, but we don't know nothing about it. We would like to, but we don't know nothing. I don't know nothing about the words. I know. I got to talk to some people before I say too much, but we would like to offer to get you off the ground. You know what I mean? You can't tell somebody to do nothing and then don't tell them how to do it, right? And then to talk about them bad for not doing it. So, we would like to offer that to you. I got to talk to a couple of people here and to see how, how they feel about it. But I'm telling you, the time is now. What are we going to wait for? You wait for another pandemic, you got out of that one by the skin of your teeth. Only reason you got out of it because God said, we're not doing that right now. That's the only reason, because they had everything shut down. They didn't want me to even go to, you don't even have y'all, couldn't even go to work. They say, take some free money and sit home, become a government pauper until we get you where we want you. And then we were suckers for it. Say, yeah, I gotta do what they said. You don't think they see how well it worked? You don't think they're gonna do that again? But at the Adventist church, we're supposed to be there to fill the gap and to fill the health wise also, and save these souls so we can get up out of here. All right, I'm done. Let's have a word of prayer. Get out of here. Bow here. And Father, Lord, we're thankful for the time today. Pray we weren't too long. Bless the people, Lord. Give us the information and knowledge that we need so we can finish this work. And forgive us, Lord, for our idleness and sometimes just not knowing any better, Lord. Pray that your angels will go with us, show us the way.